Let's talk about media queries. A media query is a way that we can use CSS to test for certain conditions when a file's opened in a browser, HTML file's open in a browser. And if certain conditions are met, we can then apply different styles. And a media query is really valuable in responsive design. So when we're designing responsively, we are trying to make sure that we're designing for as many different viewing outcomes as possible. So we're designing for mobile, we're designing for desktops, we're designing for tablets, etc. And in responsive design, more often than not, we're designing mobile first. So we're thinking about that mobile experience, and then we're extrapolating up from there. Most browser sessions are on mobile devices these days, so it just makes good sense to think about that experience first. So we'll design for that mobile experience first, but then what happens when someone actually looks at that file or that website on a tablet or a desktop computer? Then we'll employ a media query to display some different CSS. So within the one CSS file, we can have all the styles for those different outcomes. Let's look at writing a media query and how it's written. First of all, we'll have our normal CSS for our mobile situation. And in this case, for my mobile design, I want to have a background color of green. So when I open up the phone, open up the website on my phone, I've got a green background. We can kind of simulate the size of our device by moving around that viewport width. And you can see down here that it gives me a width in pixels. So something like that is around about a website experience, or at least a mobile experience. At least it's the kind of correct ratio for a mobile experience. So what happens when I view my website on a device that's maybe this width? Kind of maybe it's a tablet. Well, I want to be able to change that style, so I use a media query, and we write a media query by starting with the @ symbol and then writing media. And then, so we've declared that this is a media query, and we're going to check something. We're going to check some conditions. And so inside some brackets, we can add the conditions that we want to meet. And in this case, I'm going to check for a minimum width. And we'll put around about 600 pixels. All right, so we're declaring we're going to check something, and this is what we're going to check: the width of that browser. And then inside some curly brackets, we'll put all of the new CSS that we want to display if those conditions are indeed met. So we've got a browser width of coming up to around about 600, and then when that condition is met, that minimum width is achieved of 600, beyond that we're going to apply some different style, and I'm going to apply a different background color. Maybe we'll make that blue. Oops, sorry, I've done that incorrectly. I've actually got to include the body. I've got to declare what element I'm changing. So it's the body, excuse me, sorry about that. So before we get to that, before we meet that condition of 600, a minimum width of 600, our background color is green, our body background color is green. And then once we get beyond that, of a minimum width of 600, our body color will change to blue. So that's how we can kind of make different style rules for different device situations. And we can also have multiple media queries. So let's write another media query in this little example. We're going to check for minimum width again. But maybe we'll make it 900 pixels this time, and this will be for our desktop. And what we're doing here is we're creating what they call breakpoints. So we've got a breakpoint. We're starting with the mobile design. We've got a breakpoint for tablet, and then we've got another we're writing another breakpoint here for desktop. And I'm targeting the body, and I'm going to change the background color of the body. Maybe we'll make it red this time. So our mobile experience, a tablet experience, and then our desktop experience. And all of that style we can incorporate into the one CSS file by using media queries, and we can check those conditions, check for conditions, and if those conditions are met, we can include extra CSS. Now, there's lots of different types of conditions that we can check for. My kind of preferred is the minimum width. It's kind of nice and simple, and it works well with a mobile first strategy. So I design everything for, so I mark up everything for mobile first, get all of my CSS right for my mobile experience. Then I add a minimum width media query for tablet, and then maybe another one for desktop. But there are a bunch of other things that we can kind of check for. We can be looking for, obviously, the width and height in the viewport. We're checking for the width currently of the viewport. We can actually check the width of the device itself, so outside of the view browser window. We can check for the device width. We can also check for orientation, whether or not the phone is kind of in landscape or portrait. We can check for resolution as well. So there's a lot of different kinds of conditions that we can include inside our media query.